just seconds before the wedding began. Your soulmate made one emotional choice about you. My beloved child, hold your thoughts for just a moment, because there is a scene unfolding beyond ordinary sight, and if you rush ahead now, you may never understand why this message found you today. Imagine a room filled with celebration. Gentle laughter echoes through the halls. Every detail appears perfect, every face expects the next chapter to begin. Yet in the middle of that carefully planned moment, one heart refuses to move with the crowd. It pauses. It remembers. It searches for something no one else can see. What if the most important decision wasn't made during the ceremony, but in the silent seconds before it ever began? There is a reason this story is reaching you now. Not because it speaks about coincidence, but because it speaks about choices made when no audience is watching. Those final moments before a lifelong commitment often reveal truths that months of conversation could never uncover. And in those final seconds, your soulmate faced a choice that no one around them truly understood. Their expression changed. Their breathing slowed. Time itself seemed to stretch, as though the universe quietly whispered, "Look again. Stay with this moment. Something remarkable is still hidden beneath its surface." Everyone around them believed they knew what was happening. They saw elegant clothes, smiling relatives, joyful conversations, and hopeful expectations. But none of them could hear the conversation happening inside one's soul. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was deeper than words. A single memory appeared without warning. Not a random memory, but one connected to you. Have you ever wondered why certain people suddenly enter your thoughts even when life seems to be moving in another direction? Perhaps because some connections refuse to disappear simply because circumstances have changed. They remain quiet, waiting for the exact moment when they can no longer be ignored. That is exactly what happened. Just before the ceremony was about to begin, your soulmate experienced something unexpected. It wasn't fear. It wasn't regret. It was clarity. Clarity often arrives at the least predictable moment. One heartbeat. One quiet breath. One unexpected realization. And suddenly everything that had seemed certain became filled with new questions. Why did your face appear in their thoughts now? Why did an emotion they believed was buried suddenly become impossible to overlook? Why did their heart insist on revisiting a chapter they believed had already been closed? Don't answer too quickly. Sometimes the greatest turning points don't announce themselves with noise. They arrive as a whisper that becomes impossible to silence. As those final seconds slipped away, they looked around the room differently than before. The decorations no longer captured their attention. The voices became distant. Even the excitement surrounding them seemed to fade into the background. Their focus shifted inward. Something inside them asked a question they had never dared to ask before. What if the person who truly changed my heart was never forgotten? Questions like that cannot be forced away forever. You may think this story is about a wedding. But it isn't. It is about awakening. It is about discovering that the heart keeps a record even when the mind tries to move on. There are moments in life when destiny does not interrupt with chaos. Instead, it quietly places one memory in front of you and waits to see what you will do with it. That was the crossroads your soulmate reached. No one standing beside them realized anything had changed. From the outside, everything still looked exactly the same. But inside, everything had already begun transforming. Before another second passed, they made one emotional choice about you. Not a public announcement. Not a dramatic confession. A private decision. A decision no applause could influence. A decision born entirely from truth. Wait before you assume you know what that choice was, because what happened next carried consequences far greater than anyone in that room could have imagined. The next moment didn't simply change the direction of a ceremony, it quietly began changing the direction of two destinies, and the reason behind that choice is even more extraordinary than the choice itself. A quiet shift had already taken place, yet no one around them noticed it. Isn't it remarkable how the biggest turning points often happen without a single sound? Stay with this story a little longer, because the next few moments reveal why that silent decision about you carried more weight than anyone could have imagined. As the final preparations continued, your soulmate gently stepped away for what others assumed would be only a brief moment. No one questioned it. No one followed. They simply believed it was another ordinary pause before an extraordinary event. But this pause was unlike any other. Standing alone, they closed their eyes for just a second and allowed every expectation surrounding them to fade into the distance. Then something extraordinary happened. Instead of imagining the future everyone expected them to choose, they found themselves remembering conversations that had never truly left their heart. Little moments. Quiet smiles. Unfinished dreams. A feeling that had never demanded attention, yet had never disappeared either. It was as if an invisible thread connected every memory back to one person, you. Have you ever noticed how truth waits patiently? It never forces its way into your life. It simply appears when the heart is finally ready to recognize it. That was the realization unfolding before them. For the first time, they stopped asking, "What do others expect from me?" and began asking, "What genuinely brings peace to my soul?" Those two questions sound similar, but they lead to completely different destinations. If this story is touching something inside you, let your thoughts be heard in the comments. Someone else may need this reminder today. And if these moments continue speaking to your heart, staying connected by subscribing simply means you'll never miss the next chapter of this journey. The silence around them suddenly felt different. It wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with understanding. In that stillness, they made one emotional promise, not to chase the loudest voices, but to honor the quiet truth they could no longer ignore. That promise wasn't about changing everything in an instant. It was about refusing to ignore what had become impossible to deny. And the very next moment would place that promise in front of a test no one saw coming. Everything seemed ready to move forward, yet something unseen was quietly rewriting the meaning of that day. Before another step could be taken, an unexpected pause settled over the moment. It lasted only a few seconds, but sometimes a few seconds are enough to separate the life everyone expects from the life the heart has been preparing for all along. Your soulmate stood completely still. Not because they were uncertain, but because they finally understood something they had overlooked for far too long. There are moments when destiny doesn't ask for speed. It asks for honesty. And honesty has a way of changing everything. As they looked toward the path ahead, another thought gently surfaced, one that refused to disappear. What if the story isn't finished yet? That question echoed more deeply than any voice surrounding them. It wasn't about turning back. It wasn't about fear. It was about recognizing that some connections continue growing even during silence. Time may create distance, but genuine understanding often grows in that quiet space. Have you ever felt that certain people remain present in your thoughts without trying? No messages. No explanations. Yet something inside reminds you they still matter. Those moments are easy to dismiss, but sometimes they become the beginning of a completely different chapter. Your soulmate realized they had spent so much time listening to expectations that they had forgotten to listen to themselves. For the first time in a long while, they allowed their heart to speak without interruption. And what it revealed surprised even them. It reminded them of your kindness. Your patience. The conversations that never needed perfect words. The feeling of being understood without pretending to be someone else. Those memories carried no pressure. Only peace. That peace became impossible to ignore. The room around them was still filled with celebration, but inside, another celebration had quietly begun, the celebration of finally recognizing what truly mattered. The emotional choice they made about you was never about changing another person's life. It was about refusing to erase the value of the connection you shared. From that moment forward, they silently promised themselves that whatever happened next, they would never allow that truth to be forgotten again. But destiny wasn't finished revealing its surprises. Because just as they accepted this realization, someone unexpected noticed the change in their expression, and what that person quietly said next would become the spark that pushed this entire story toward its most unforgettable turning point. Just when it seemed the moment would quietly pass, one unexpected voice broke the silence. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Yet those few words carried a weight that no one else in the room could understand. Before you move on, stay through this final stretch, because this is where every hidden piece begins to fit together. Someone looked into your soulmate's eyes and gently asked, "Are you truly at peace?" Such a simple question. But sometimes the simplest questions unlock the deepest truths. For a heartbeat, there was no reply. Not because they didn't know the answer, but because the answer had already been written inside them. They finally smiled, not the smile people wear for photographs, but the quiet smile that appears when the heart stops arguing with itself. At that very instant, they realized something extraordinary. The emotional choice they had made about you was never meant to create regret. It was meant to awaken gratitude. You had become a reminder that real connections leave behind wisdom, courage, and hope. Some people enter our lives to stay forever, while others change us forever. Either way, they become part of the path that shapes who we are becoming. And then came one final realization. The story between two souls is never measured by one single day. It is measured by every lesson, every unexpected meeting, every quiet memory that refuses to disappear. That understanding brought them peace unlike anything they had felt before. If this journey has spoken to your heart, share your thoughts below. I'd genuinely love to know which moment stayed with you the most. And if stories that inspire reflection and hope are meaningful to you, subscribing simply means we'll continue exploring these remarkable journeys together. Now hear this carefully. The greatest emotional choice your soulmate made was not about changing the past. It was about choosing to carry the truth of your connection with honesty, respect, and gratitude wherever life would lead next. That choice changed them. And perhaps, in a quiet way, it has changed you too. So as this story comes to an end, don't ask whether destiny always follows the path we imagine. Instead, ask a better question. What kind of person am I becoming because of every meaningful connection I've experienced? Sometimes that answer becomes the beginning of your greatest chapter. The ceremony eventually continued. Life continued. The future continued. But one thing would never again be the same. A heart that had finally listened to its deepest truth could never return to pretending it had heard nothing at all. And perhaps that is the real message this story was always waiting to reveal. The most powerful choices are often invisible to everyone else. Yet they quietly shape the rest of our lives. Until our paths cross again, keep moving forward with courage, remain open to unexpected moments, and remember, sometimes a single honest decision, made in complete silence, becomes the beginning of everything that truly matters. One last thought, before this story fades into silence, there is something you deserve to hear. Sometimes we search for a dramatic ending, believing destiny always arrives with thunder. But the greatest revelations often arrive like the sunrise, quiet, steady, impossible to stop once they begin. Your soulmate walked away from that unforgettable moment carrying something far more valuable than certainty. They carried awareness. Awareness that genuine connections cannot be measured by timing alone. Awareness that some people become part of your inner world forever, not because life was perfect, but because they revealed a version of yourself that no one else could. And perhaps that is why this message found you today. Not to convince you that every story ends the same way. Not to promise an outcome that only time can reveal. But to remind you that every meaningful connection leaves behind wisdom that shapes your future. Think about it. If that emotional choice had never happened. If those final seconds before everything began had passed without reflection. Would they have discovered what truly mattered to them? Probably not. Sometimes a pause is more powerful than 1,000 hurried decisions. Sometimes remembering becomes the first step toward becoming. And sometimes the people who change us the most never realize how deeply they have done so. As you leave this story behind, don't hold on to unanswered questions. Hold on to this truth instead. Your journey is still unfolding. Every conversation. Every unexpected encounter. Every quiet lesson. Every moment of patience. They are all preparing you for chapters you cannot yet see. The future has an extraordinary way of connecting moments that once seemed unrelated. One day you'll look back and understand why certain memories refuse to disappear. Why certain people remained meaningful. Why certain moments arrived exactly when they did. Until then, continue becoming the person your future is already waiting to meet. Walk forward with confidence. Choose kindness over fear. Choose hope over doubt. Choose growth over hesitation. Because the most beautiful stories are never written in a single day. They are written one honest choice at a time. And perhaps, somewhere beyond today's horizon, another meaningful chapter is already beginning, quietly waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. Before you close this chapter, pause for one final heartbeat. There is one piece of the story that has remained hidden until now. It isn't a secret about the past. It is a truth about the future. The emotional choice your soulmate made did not end when that unforgettable day came to a close. It continued. Every day afterward, that quiet decision influenced the way they looked at life. They became more thoughtful, more patient, more willing to notice the little moments that once slipped past unnoticed. Why? Because they finally understood something that many people spend years trying to learn. A meaningful connection is never defined only by where two people stand today. It is also shaped by who they become because of it. That realization changed the way they approached every new chapter. Instead of rushing toward answers, they began trusting the journey itself. Instead of fearing uncertainty, they started seeing it as a bridge leading toward greater understanding. Maybe you've been wondering why this message reached you at exactly this time. Perhaps it's because your own story is asking you to do something similar. Not to chase. Not to force. Not to look backward with regret. But to move forward with wisdom, carrying only the lessons that make your future brighter. Take a deep look at your own path. How many moments once felt confusing, yet later became the reason you grew stronger? How many unexpected turns eventually revealed opportunities you never imagined? Life has a remarkable way of connecting its scattered pieces when the time is right. Your soulmate discovered that truth in the quietest possible way. And now, perhaps, you're discovering it too. So if today has placed uncertainty in front of you, don't mistake it for the end of your story. Sometimes uncertainty is simply the doorway through which clarity quietly enters. Keep believing in your ability to grow. Keep choosing peace over pressure. Keep becoming the person your future self will thank you for becoming. Because the most extraordinary journeys are not remembered for a single dramatic moment. They are remembered for the quiet choices that transformed ordinary days into unforgettable chapters. And maybe, just maybe, this very message was one of those quiet moments. If it reminded you to believe in hope, to value genuine connections, and to keep walking forward with confidence, then this story has already fulfilled its purpose. Until the next chapter finds you, remember this. The heart grows strongest not when it knows every answer, but when it has the courage to keep moving forward, trusting that every meaningful step is leading exactly where it needs to go. And somewhere beyond today's horizon, another beautiful beginning is already preparing to meet you. Even now, after everything you've heard, there is one final realization waiting to be uncovered. It isn't hidden in a place. It isn't written on a page. It lives inside every choice that follows a moment of truth. Stay with me until the very end, because this last piece may change the way you see your own journey forever. Your soulmate eventually understood that the emotional choice made in those quiet seconds before the ceremony was never about escaping one future or chasing another. It was about refusing to ignore what their heart had honestly revealed. That single decision became a turning point, not because everyone witnessed it, but because they did. From that day on, they carried a different perspective. They stopped measuring life by perfect timing. They stopped believing that every answer had to arrive immediately. Instead, they discovered something far more powerful. Growth happens in silence. Strength grows through patience. And clarity appears when the heart is finally willing to listen without fear. Perhaps that is why this story reached you today. Maybe it isn't asking you to predict tomorrow. Maybe it's inviting you to appreciate today. To recognize that every meaningful experience, whether joyful, unexpected, or challenging, has been shaping you into someone wiser than you were yesterday. Look back for a moment. There were seasons when you thought nothing meaningful was happening. Yet those very seasons quietly built your resilience. There were conversations you almost forgot. Yet they left behind lessons you still carry. There were people who crossed your path for only a short time. Yet their influence continues to echo through your life. Nothing meaningful is ever truly wasted. Every sincere connection leaves behind light. Every honest choice creates a new direction. Every quiet moment has the potential to become the beginning of something extraordinary. So don't rush your story. Don't compare your journey with anyone else's. The path meant for you will unfold one step at a time, revealing exactly what you need when you're ready to receive it. And perhaps the greatest message hidden inside this entire journey is wonderfully simple. The emotional choice you're